Again, my name is AJ Ali, and I am based out of Richmond, Virginia. All right, let's see here. I see someone, looks like we have Salem, Massachusetts. That's incredible. Looks like someone's testing. Test 1212. Yes, that came through. Birmingham, incredible. We love seeing folks from all over. Again, we'll probably get started in around one more minute. All right, perfect. We're at the 2 minute mark. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, today's session is being recorded. So if you've registered, you will receive the recording, should show up tomorrow or next day. But for today, we will learn first why our time matters with a monograph. We'll also understand that the permissions, the way that your account is perhaps configured, that may impact what you're able to access or the information we see. We'll then have a little bit of a tour. We'll go ahead and basically have a guided walkthrough of how to navigate Monograph, understand our project overview, how to use our timesheets and expenses. We will focus primarily on our desktop, but with time we'll focus on our mobile app as well. We'll leave time for questions before we conclude by exploring the support resources available beyond our webinar series. Just to show here photoed, this is your launch team or your onboarding team here at Monograph. Aside from myself, AJ, you may be working with either of my colleagues, Kenny, Kelsey, Malik, or Alex. Admins, if you're unsure of whom your launch manager is, please refer back to your initial introduction when you were working with our sales team. So to dive in terms of why our time or our timesheets matter, I always like to refer to time tracking or timesheets as the heart of Monograph. This is what powers not just the application, but the value you receive, not just as a contributor, but as a firm level from Monograph. When we log our time consistently, this is what fuels our team forecast, not just our team forecast, but really our analytics across the app. This is really the key, tracking our time to understanding both the success and maybe opportunity within our projects. When you track time in Monograph, this helps maybe answer a few questions within the firm, such as which phases do we log or burn the most fee or budget on? What are we investing the most time in for each project? Do we spend a lot of time not just on a certain phase, but maybe on certain activities? Do we maybe have a bottleneck based on certain activities? Or maybe we're unsure of how much we should be billing our client, especially if we're really doing unplanned work for additional services or for permitting. All of this can be resolved by tracking time in Monograph. We like to say that time is a powerful thing within the app. Before we get into our walkthrough, just to highlight and explain, whether you're following along on this screen or if you're following along on your end, the permissions truly can impact what we're able to access within Monograph. Your permissions are established or configured by your admin as part of the initial system setup. When it comes to permissions, this may impact some of the various things that you may see or do, such as our ability to modify projects, the information we see on them, such as information around our budgets, project financials. That's all going to be handled through permissions. It's also one where permissions may impact the reporting options that you're able to see. So when it comes to reports such as our firm level profit, team forecasting, again, all of this is managed through our permissions. So we'll get started with the walkthrough of how to navigate Monograph, really understanding our project overview when we read a project, and then most importantly, how to use our time and expenses on the desktop and on the mobile app. We also wanted to preface that permissions are so key because this walkthrough is really designed for all users. So going to be presenting Monograph in the eyes of a non-administrator, someone who just has permission to come in, access their assigned projects, and log time. So again, that's where I preface, if you're following along on your screen, you may or may not see more depending on your permissions. So let's get started. And so first, just to show, when you initially log into Monograph, we'll be greeted by what's known as our Insights dashboard. The Insights dashboard will contain a few widgets with insights or pieces of information when we log into Monograph. Again, the information you see on your dashboard that is managed through the permissions. You may see additional information such as firm level reporting metrics, maybe invoiced activity, so it may vary what you see, but the intention, again with our Insights dashboard, to kick it off, you'll first see the recent projects widget over here. Everyone is able to see recent projects, and this truly means what are the last projects that I engaged with in my prior browsing session with Monograph? Did I just click and maybe view on the project and spend some time on it for a little bit? Or did I just maybe have some hours? I like to highlight this widget because it shows the projects that you've most recently engaged with in the system. So when you log in, it's almost like a nice reminder. Hey, these are the projects I spent some time on in my last session. It will show up to 6 projects. And again, it's almost like our project history. Which ones did we recently interact with in the system? We'll also observe at the top left corner a timesheets widget. The timesheets widget will just serve 2 purposes. We can hover over hours logged this week or last week. It's basically a shortcut. Clicking on either of these is no different than if we clicked on time and went into our timesheet. And then lastly, we'll observe our assigned tasks. Should you decide to use tasks for your projects in Monograph, we can get a bird's eye view from our dashboard of not just our tasks overdue, what we may have upcoming this week or next week. Maybe we have some deliverables we need to wrap up before Christmas. But that is everything we'll see initially when we first log in. This is our Insights dashboard. When it comes to navigating or switching between the different parts of Monograph, oh, sorry, that is on my end. Gotta love TV magic or Zoom magic over here. Let me pull back up my screen. All right, take 2. So I've got my screen pulled back up. Apologies for that technical error there. But aside from our dashboard over here, we'll see, starting on the far left side, this darker shaded area, we refer to this as basically our main menu or this menu bar. And within here, this is where we'll find all of the items available to us within Monograph. So we start off at home with our dashboard. Shifting underneath, we'll see all of the projects that have been assigned to us. Underneath our projects, we'll find our staff. Within staff, this is where we can see the current week within our staffing feature. Admins, this is going to be one of the next trainings you will join us for. It's how to use the staffing feature as part of our time and scheduling session. Everyone is able to see the current week. What have we been staffed for? Within the staff page, we'll also observe when we click on staff, we'll find this slightly lighter area. Aside from the main menu, we look at this as almost a secondary navigational menu, and we'll find in the upper corners, aside from staffing, where it shows team, this is what's called our team directory. The team directory, think of this as almost like the company or the company directory in that sense. This is where we can find all of the users within Monograph at the firm level. We're able to see just some general information, such as an email address. But that's the idea with the staff. We can see what are we perhaps staffed out in the current week and just the team if we needed to. Shifting below, this is where I have my timesheet over here. I used this a little bit earlier, so I will remove this example. So when we start logging time, we'll have kind of a clean slate. But when you select time, this will bring you into your weekly timesheet. Again, we'll look at this a little bit further with the back half of our time. That pun is semi-intended. And then underneath, we'll see a tab called Money. And within this tab for Money, this will bring us into an area for our expenses. This is where you would input your expenses or your reimbursables within Monograph. Again, we'll cover this shortly after the timesheets, but within the money section, this is where you're able to access and enter in your expenses. You also may find additional options here based on your permissions. And then shifting below the money tab, we'll observe and where it shows our contacts. Within contacts, this is where we'll see first what's known as our client directory. We may know this area not just for clients, but where we find our customers or sub-customers. Within this space, this is where we can view our client directory. We may have some additional information for them, and we may have the ability to either add new clients or update their information directly. We'll observe this with not just our clients, but our consultants underneath as well. We may know these as our sub-consultants or vendors that we work with on projects. And very similar, we may find companies, individual points of contact, and same thing, the ability to update or create new ones within this space. We may or may not have the option. Again, we'll defer to our permissions there. So that is everything we'll see within the upper half of our main menu. Shifting below to the bottom left corner, we'll find some additional icons here where it shows that we have basically this little gift over here. This is a changelog, so we can see all of the newest updates that have been released over time within Monograph. We may have seen this little bow. It had a little yellow icon or a yellow alert, so we can quickly see, again, just what's new. We'll also observe this magnifying glass, which is a search bar. The search bar you can also press. If you're on a Mac computer, you can press Command K. Or if you're on a Windows, you can press Control K. You can quickly access our search bar. Maybe I needed to search within the client directory. I can also search for projects. This may make it perhaps a little more seamless where we may need to click in and out of certain areas of Monograph. And then lastly, where it shows this little gear icon at the bottom left, this is where we can click on it. And from a side's logging out, we'll access what's known as our employee profile within this space. When you click on the gear icon and select profile, this is where you're able to first enter in some initial information about yourself, maybe a headshot and additional details. We also have the ability, and this was brand new, we just released this not long ago, but based on perhaps the projects you follow, or if we leverage milestones and tasks, you actually have the ability within your profile, you can actually push out and have those key dates appear. on your calendar. We recommend following these setup instructions, but if you use the Apple Calendar, Outlook, or Gmail Calendar, you can have phase dates, milestones, and task dates appear on your calendar through here. When I click on the gear icon, we'll also observe an area for notifications. This is where we can toggle any notifications or insights we receive from Monograph. So maybe we need a daily digest of our tasks if we're leveraging them. You can have basically a daily reminder email go out of what's due, upcoming, and maybe overdue. And then same with our timesheets. We'll actually review this a little bit later, but when we log time, if we perhaps did not indicate a timesheet activity, this might be helpful. That way we know about that. So we recommend clicking on that gear icon at the bottom left. You can personalize your user profile. Again, you can set up our calendar sync or pushing out those key dates if you like, and set up your email notifications from Monograph. So this is what we'll initially see when it comes to our dashboard when we first log in, and then navigating and understanding the items on our main menu. What we'll do next is we'll actually dive into our projects and we'll look at projects a little bit further. I'll select projects, the top left corner, and within this space, first we'll see projects. This is where we can see all of the projects that have been assigned to us in Monograph. We have quite a few ways. Looking first at our project overview page. There's quite a few ways we can look at this page. Maybe I prefer to sort my projects based on alphabetical order, but maybe my colleague Malik, they may prefer to view projects based on a project number or oldest to newest. We can also have additional filter options. Our project status, categories, clients, we can reset our filters here. And when we're looking at our main Gantt chart shown on this page, we'll observe at the top right corner where it's showing days. If we'd like to view the Gantt chart in weeks, months, or one of my favorites, quarters, we can do so here. I'll maybe adjust this to weeks, and shifting back to the left side of the screen, I'll zoom in just a little bit further over here. Kind of breaking up our screen into two halves, starting on the left side. On the left side, this is what's known as our projects list. If we had quite a ton or quite a few projects with a Monograph, we could use the search bar. Maybe I wanted to search for a project that might be based on the name, or if we think in project number, we can leverage the search bar here to search within our overview page. And we'll also find on the left side within the projects list a running count of how many projects are shown within the current view. And we'll find, starting at the top left in the colored field, this is where we'll find first the project number. We'll see the name of the project. Below the project number, on my end where it shows active, this is where we may find the status of the project. If a project is perhaps in a different state, maybe we're hitting a stopping point, that is where the project status could be adjusted to a different state, such as paused. And where it shows 7 staffed, I'll use the hourly residents in kind of this greenish color over here. Where it shows 7 staffed, that is referring to the total number of role assignments for the project. It's not referring to how many people are assigned on the project, but admins, if you're on this call, you will recall why it's so key to make sure that we have our roles assigned. We'll also observe and where it's showing a percentage over here. In this example with the hourly residents, we have 87%, and we can see at a firm level, this 87% reflects how many hours have been logged to the entire project against what was budgeted. So we can see collectively or at the firm level, how are we pacing against the entire project? This is where we can see next to the percentage. I'll zoom in a little bit more with the hourly residents, but we'll find our totals for planned, logged, and remaining. This is referring to how many hours were initially planned or budgeted for the entire project. Logged, what we see here in the percentage. What is that percentage, or how many timesheet hours have we logged, and what is remaining here? So again, we're able to see collectively as a team and as a firm, how are we pacing against the entire project? We also may observe if additional project information was included, we may find details such as the project address on here. That's what we'll observe within our projects list on the left side. Shifting over to the right side, this is where we have basically our main Gantt chart. We're able to see just an overview for all of our projects. I can see an abbreviation, which phase are we currently in? And we may observe on my end, it's showing either these check marks or star icons. These star icons indicate milestones available or milestones that we have created for the phase itself. The intention with the milestone, and we have examples here. Sticking with the hourly residents in green, this milestone for 75% represents 75% completion for a percentage of billing. That's just one example that we may see milestones used. We may find milestones represented by other key dates or significant moments within a phase. Maybe it's a site visit. Maybe we have a client review period. Those are examples that we may find of milestones included on the project. And then underneath each phase within the Gantt itself, we'll find a gray line with the dollar sign underneath each phase. This is what we refer to as the money Gantt within Monograph. The money Gantt is the dollar sign you'll observe underneath the phase. How are we pacing at a certain phase? You may be able to hover over the money Gantt and see additional information related to the phase, but that is managed or set up through permissions. In this example here, starting with the hourly residents in green, we'll find that we have time logged to this DD phase, but the dollar sign is to the left or it's behind today's date. That's a good thing because it's indicating that fee logged or hours logged in timesheets, this is at a pretty healthy pace or a good velocity. And so we may be on track to come in either under or at budget. That's why I kind of wanted to use the hourly residents as my prime example. If we observe shifting to the projects below, hybrid house and post digital, we'll actually find that the money Gantt exceeds or is to the right of today's date. That may be an indication that, again, based on our current pace or how we're logging hours, we may be on track to exceed or go over budget. The money Gantt is solely based on time logged against the face. It's not anything else. And if we were to select a certain project, I'll stick with the hourly residence. This is where we're able to see additional information or details related to the project. Just wanted to make sure. Okay. Saw a comment come in that I'd froze. I hope I still haven't froze, but if I have, please let me know. When we select or open up a project in Monograph, you'll observe first our project overview page. The intention with this project overview page is that we can see just additional information related to this specific project. I can see first just my phases. We can actually click into a phase, get more info, but I can see almost like this mini Gantt related to the phase. If I wanted to stretch this out and look at months, we could do so here. And then we'll observe several widgets below, starting with project details. On the left side, this is where we'll find our general project information. I have my timeline, my categories over here. I have examples of project categories. Maybe this is a commercial office project. Categories can also be used in other creative ways. They're basically project tags or project labels, filters that can be applied. You can have multiple of them on a project. I may find that if we have projects in different cities or locations, we may find location-based categories used here as well. I also may find that if we have perhaps internal teams, maybe I have a commercial team and a residential team, or that's team A and team B, we may see categories used this way as well. We'll also find additional information related to the client, address, and our notes. We'll also observe and where it shows team. This is referring to the team that has been assigned for the entire project, and we'll see their role assignments underneath. We may observe additional widgets in this space as well if you have the ability to perhaps edit projects or see additional information related to it. That's where you might find more about like the project financials or project details there. But this is where we can come in, see for the project, not just the details, but maybe the team or the staff assigned. We can look at the Gantt itself. And if we use milestones and tasks on our projects, at the top left corner, this is where we can view our milestones and tasks for the project itself. We can click on, it looks like a little caret, but where it shows this arrow next to projects, this can take us back. And again, should you use milestones and tasks at the firm level, that's where we can actually see all of our project milestones and all of our project tasks created here as well. So if I wanted to, again, just kind of see holistically across all of my projects, what are the milestones and tasks, we can do so from this page. So that's everything we'll see when it comes to accessing our project overview reading our Gantt chart, and diving in to a specific project. Now, we'll focus on our time and expenses, the main reason that why we're here, and kind of our key lever for using Monograph successfully. I'll start first with our timesheets, and we'll start specifically on our desktop here. I like to say that there are a couple of ways we can log time within Monograph. When we select time on the left side, this will bring you into your weekly timesheet. This is the most common method we'll see for logging our hours on the desktop. We come into time, we'll access our weekly timesheet. Right now, the weekly timesheet is blank. I like to say, kind of think of this page as basically a simplified spreadsheet. The idea is that we have these zeros running along the top. Think of these as basically columns. Once we add projects, phases, activities, and hours, we'll then get more information shown up here. So to add a project into our weekly timesheet, I'll navigate to the search bar and I will go ahead and select, or I'll type in, hourly. I could either type in the name of the project or the project number. And once I do so, I'll select pre-design for this example. This is where we'll see, and I've pulled in basically this row into my timesheet. We'll observe first our project details. We'll see the number, name. We'll see the phase, our role, and if you selected the incorrect phase, we did see quite a few options in the dropdown. You can select this pencil icon. When you click on this pencil icon, this is where I can adjust the phase where I want to log my hours to. Maybe my hours were intended for SD, but I accidentally selected pre-design. So the biggest thing we like to say is that when logging your hours in Monograph, it's not just about selecting our project or phase and adding hours. The big thing will be to select an activity shown right here. This is where we'll find our timesheet activities. And so within this activity dropdown, we may refer to these as the tasks or the jobs that we log against our projects and phases. This is basically the work. Again, admins, you can manage and customize your activity list within your settings underneath app defaults. So maybe in this example, I'll just select office meeting, or no, sorry, site meeting, just to give it a proof of concept example. Once we have an activity selected, I can then navigate to, may call this a little cell, but basically underneath the appropriate day. And once I'm here, I'll add 1.5 to represent 1.5 hours. That is something that I do encourage. And admins, if you're here, I will defer to you on specific guidance for your team around the use of decimals within timesheets. We may find some teams use increments such as 0.25, 0.5, 0.75. I may find some only round up or down to the nearest half hour. We only use 0.5 or not. We also may find some teams only use full hour increments, where we only round up or round down. So I will defer to your admin regarding the use of decimal places because we're unable to preset or configure this. So that's where we suggest admins provide that guidance to your team on the decimals and if they should be used or not. Now, once I've added that timesheet entry, This is where I'll have the option to include a note with it as well. I'll just give this a basic example over here. And once I've added this note, I've now added hours and notes to my timesheets. This information will automatically save. So even if I clicked out a monograph and came back into time, we'll find it there. You do have the option at the top right corner. You can export your timesheet if we needed to pull or export the data entered on this page. Or if I wanted to submit it, we can do so here. Submit is really meant to be a status indicator for the timesheet. If your timesheet is not submitted, it will just have what's known as an open status. We recommend using submit to indicate, especially to an admin, has the timesheet been submitted, meaning has it been finalized or not. That way, an admin can know, okay, timesheets with an open status, maybe we still need to add some hours, versus the ones that are submitted are truly finalized for that week. And within this example, I've logged one activity at an hour and a half to this project and phase. If you've worked multiple activities, no worries. Just navigate to the dropdown where it shows plus activity. Maybe after the site meeting, I did some client follow-up work. I can enter 2, and they'll just represent 2 hours. We'll also observe, shifting back to the top of our timesheet, I'll now see some totals around how many timesheet activities have been logged and how many hours have been logged for the day. And if we have hours on other days, we'll see a total for the week as well. We also have the option to log overhead to our timesheet. When we say overhead with a monograph, we may refer to this as internal or non-project specific work. We may find overhead used in a few ways. I have some examples of internal work. Maybe that's business development. Maybe we have internal meetings. Maybe that's marketing, or maybe that's RFP. I'll choose marketing for my example. And I'll say 2.5 to represent 2.5 hours. I'll just give another example note over here. Now, this is just an example of logging overhead or internal work. You can come into the dropdown and you can select that option. Admins, your overhead list can be managed alongside the activity list within your settings in app defaults. We also may find, and it's showing next to overhead, where it shows request time off. You may or may not see this. This will depend on if the time off feature has been enabled by your admin. If it's been enabled, you can select request time off, and this will take you to our time off portal where you can submit. Maybe that's a vacation or a sick day, or maybe that's a jury day. So you may or may not see this enabled. Again, this will depend on if we're using the time off feature. Admins, if we need further information about time off and how it works, please reach out to your launch manager and they can provide additional information there. Now, we did see how to log our time by selecting the timesheet and going directly into it. We also have another option on the desktop where it shows timer at the top left. The intention with this timer, it looks like a green play button, is that we can select our project. We can select our phase. We can confirm our activity. And here, let me actually, I'll choose a slightly different project in this case. Just don't have one assigned. A role. Normally our role assignment will appear here. And the idea with this timer is if we were to start the timer, we could actually have this running in the background. The timer will show where it's running here. We can always pause it if we'd like to. If I pause it, I can actually come back into the timesheet and it will show this initial entry that I started here. If the timer was running a little bit longer, it would begin to fill. And I can still modify the activity and any hours. So if I started my timer maybe a little bit later than expected, we can come back and modify this. The timer and the ability to use this, we do find is a secondary option with a monograph for logging hours. This is because the timer is enabled or disabled by your admin. This is a firm level setting, and we may find some firms like the timer and we decide to use it. Others may not. So we do encourage, again, at the firm level, we can decide if we'd like the timer available to us as an option or not. Now, this is how we can log time on our desktop by going into our timesheet or using the timer. We can also add our expenses. And where we had seen prior, we come into the Money tab at the top right corner. This is where we'll have the option to enter our expenses or reimbursables. When we open this up, you'll select, is this to be logged against a project, or is this logged against one of those overhead items we previously saw? I'll select my project. We select our phase, and then we can select our expense category underneath. Once we have an expense category selected, we can confirm our date. We can enter in the amount, and I can add a note for the expense as well. Maybe this is just going to give this an example over here. And we also have the option to indicate. We see billable. Billable means, is this one that is billed to the client? This is where we'll also see an option for reimbursable. So maybe I need to be paid back on this directly. I can mark it as a reimbursable. I could mark it as both. And when I save it, that's just a way that I've logged basically an expense against a project itself. It's also not showing on my screen, but you can visit app.monograph.com on your mobile browser. So specifically, like we recommend using Google Chrome. We might find some folks use Safari, for example. But the idea is that you can log in and access Monograph on the go. If you're logging in on your mobile device through a mobile browser, you will not see the full desktop version of Monograph like how we've experienced today, but we are able to log our hours, use the timesheet, should be able to add an expense through there as well. We also have at this time, if you use an iPhone, we do have a mobile app available with a Monograph as well. So if you visit the App Store, We do not have one for Android as of yet. If you would like to see a version for Android, please let us know. You can submit that feedback through our chat button or let your launch manager know. If I open up Monograph on my iPhone, we'll see our mobile app will be greeted first through our weekly calendar view. And from here as well, this is where I could certainly, I just have an example on here. It's not the best one. My timesheet may have been locked. I'm unable to lock it. That's on my end. But from here as well, within the time, you would have an option. You can actually log time to any staff projects or create a time entry from here. We also have the option to create an expense directly from our phone as well. I really love this because you can take a photo of a receipt to help create that expense seamlessly with a monograph. We can also add an expense manually. And this is an example of the workflow we'd go through when logging time or an expense on the app. I'll select mileage for this example. I'll select mileage because admins, you have the ability within settings and app defaults to configure expense rates. So within the mobile app, I have mileage selected. I will confirm I'm logging it to the rate of 67 cents per mile. We also may see expense rates established not just for mileage, but if it's for prints or printing as well. And I'll go ahead and enter in directly the amount of miles. Maybe it was 100 miles. I had to do a round trip commute. I can log this as a reimbursable, and I can say mileage to the site visit, just to give it an example here. And once I have it saved, I've now automatically logged my mileage through my iPhone with a monograph. Again, this was just a quick overview of our mobile app. We do not have one for Android as of yet, but if you'd like to see it, please let us know. But it makes it even more of a breeze to access our timesheets. Ah, there it is. I'm in the current day now. I was looking at the wrong day. This is where we can quickly add or start a timer, or we can add a new time entry on here as well. So that is everything we'll see with a monograph through not just navigating and reading our dashboard, but reading a project, and most importantly, how to enter our time and expenses on the desktop and on our mobile app. I'm starting to see some questions come in, so I'll go ahead and answer them. But we do have a few minutes for any outstanding questions before we conclude. One of the first questions I see here, and this is a great question. Can multiple timers be set up so I can easily switch between project timers? That's a great question. I do like to point out that the timer does not multitask, if that makes sense, meaning it can only be run at a single time per project. However, I may find that some may choose to basically, I'll shift back over here. We may find within our timesheets, I may find the timer, and I'll just use this example here for the Mission Street. Maybe I want to start a timer for my 11th Street project. I could start a timer here. And then I also may find, if I pause it, can go back, and maybe I have another project. I'll choose Octavia Street. I may find the timer leveraged in this instance for if I want to come back. And if I pause this here, I may find that we can start Basically the entries on the timer itself. It may help with getting the timesheet filled out with our projects and phases, and then we come back. We can include those hours there. So just wanted to clarify, the timer cannot run against multiple projects, but you can certainly start off as many entries as you like, and you can resume the timer on a specific project. Or that is one where you could also, aside from resuming it on a specific one, that's where we may find folks come back and pre-fill their timesheet a little bit later. Maybe we start our timesheet entries on Monday, and then I come back later on today and fill them out. It's a great question there. The next question is, how can I edit hours if I forget to clock in or clock out? I would actually recommend in that instance, and this may depend on if you are an admin or not, to perhaps let your admin know if the timesheet was locked. Your admin has the ability to unlock the timesheet so you can fill out the hours. This is also one where admins, the timesheet lock setting will be key. Within your settings underneath app defaults, you can actually establish a grace period for how long does the team have to fill out last week's timesheet. And then the next question I see, how can I assign tasks to consultants? This will depend on if the consultant actually has a seat or an account to access Monograph. This is by intention, but tasks can only be assigned to users or team members in the system that have a timesheet. It is one where I may find, and this truly varies at the firm level, if there is a particular consultant that we may tend to work with. I may find sometimes the consultant has a seat or basically their own account to Monograph, so that way they can view the projects they're assigned to, and that is where you could also maybe assign them tasks. Another question I see here, this is a great one as well. Can you alter your timesheet after you hit the submit button? Again, this will depend on if you're an admin or not. Admins, again, you do have the ability, you can certainly go back and access past timesheets, but that is really where the timesheet lock setting will come into play. So that's where, again, I highly suggest considering maybe a grace period, and that's going to be within your settings or app defaults. I may find some teams be a little bit looser. Maybe we have a week to fill out last week's timesheet. I also may find teams be a little bit tighter with this. Maybe we only have a day or two to finalize our hours. And if we haven't finalized our hours after 2 days, maybe we need to have a discussion with the admin about filling out the timesheet. Then the next question I see here, how do I finish a project once completed and paid? That's a great question. I do not have it on my end because on our walkthrough, we are logging in or looking at Monograph as a non-admin. But if you have the ability to edit projects, that is where you can basically, I think with edit projects, that's where you can modify the status of the project or the phase. I would suggest connecting with your launch manager if we need additional information, but if you have the ability to edit projects, you can actually put the project or phase in a different status, such as if we're truly completed with it and we do not need to log time, you can mark a project as completed. And then I see another question here, how to assign tasks or hours so they can track day-to-day office activities. This one I may find here, and this is where our time and scheduling session would be helpful. I know that we normally host these on Fridays. We may find that with admin staff, that their work is logged exclusively to overhead items shown on here. It's not showing on my end, but within the staffing feature, if you have the ability to edit or make adjustments in staffing, you can actually assign overhead as needed to not just the staff, but the entire team. So if we always have, for example, 1 hour of weekly kickoff meetings, we can actually standardize that through the staffing page. So I think our time and scheduling webinar, that's going to be very helpful to join. Also see another question. What if I forgot to put in my hours? We certainly hope that the main takeaway from today's session is that we'll want to log our time consistently. But if we haven't forgotten to put in our hours, again, I say this depends on if you're an admin or a non-admin. If you're a non-admin, that's one where we may have to perhaps ask our admin, can we unlock or perhaps update last week's timesheet? This is also one where admins, you do have that ability within your settings. In that same area for app defaults with the timesheet lock, you can actually have a reminder email go out once a week. You can choose a day and time for that reminder email to go out. And I may find instead of on a Friday, maybe a Wednesday or Thursday, hey, don't forget to fill out your hours by Friday. And then I see another comment here. I cannot go into the previous week and add hours. Again, I'm unable to determine, but this is one where if we are, whether we're an admin or not, this is one where I would probably say this is may depend on our timesheet lock setting. Normally, if you go into, again, if you're an admin within staff, there's an area for staff timesheets. As an admin, you should be able to go back and access the previous week and update it as needed. But if we're a non-admin, it's very possible our permissions may prevent us to do that. And then lastly, I see over here, if we submit your timesheet and need to edit, can you unsubmit? That's a great question. So there would be an option within the timesheet, and I'll click submit here. So I have submitted my timesheet for the current week, but I maybe need to perhaps make some adjustments here. If I'm within the current week, I can still come back and modify or update my timesheet. Here, I'll just add another example over here. And once I've made those adjustments, that's where we'll see the option to resubmit it at the top right corner. So if we're within the current week and we've accidentally submitted our timesheet, you can come back and modify it. But again, if it was something where we need to adjust last week's timesheet, that will depend on the timesheet log setting that has been established by your admin. Excellent questions throughout. If we have further questions, by all means, you can connect with your launch manager. They will be following up with you shortly afterwards. And so lastly, to conclude, just the additional resources beyond our webinar series. You can also chat with us. That's where we have a purple chat button when you're logged into Monograph at the bottom right corner. That's where you can access our support team. Very helpful for general questions, troubleshooting assistance, or if you want to see a mobile app on Android, you can let us know through there. We also may find just our Learning Center and our video playlist through support.monograph.com. That's where you can access our Learning Center. And we're also on YouTube as well. You can subscribe or follow at Monograph. And lastly, as we're approaching time, we just want to thank you all for taking the time to attend our team orientation. As your firm begins to ramp up and log hours within Monograph, we do recommend to log your time daily. This is because we're able to see the real-time impact to our budgets and our project progress. And we do recommend as a best practice that your timesheet should be filled out consistently. I do say it's one where it may be easier said than done. So if we're unable to fill it out every day, maybe we find a cadence that works best for us. Perhaps Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. So come Friday, there are no surprises. You do not want to wait until Friday to start filling out your timesheet, or else we may find your work is underrepresented and not fully. But with that said, thank you all so much for taking the time to attend our